Good morning, folks. Great. So we will be discussing prelims PYQs and the importance of PYQs, how they can be a game changer in your UPSC preparation. We will be looking at a lot of PYQs from history, from polity, from ancient medieval, art and culture, environment, geography, and economy, all major GS subjects that we have. We will look at PYQs from the last at least 5, 7, 10 years. We will see that this one source, which is previous year questions, is the best source that you have in order to get a sense of what civil services prelims preparation is all about. Right. सबसे पहली चीज जो हम बात करेंगे वो ये that in if I talk about just prelims 2024, right, just prelims 2024, so these are somehow directly or very closely related type of questions that have been asked before, right? This is 11 and almost 22 questions out of 100 were somehow directly or indirectly related, meaning it's on the same concept or on similar lines. So, you will get the gist of it anyhow, right? So this is one of the reasons why I constantly say this, and I'm going to say this again one more time in this session, that you have to treat PYQs as a whole subject. PYQs cannot be something that you do on the side. PYQs cannot be something that, once I have done everything else and then I will come and go do PYQs. PYQs are a full subject in and of themselves. Treat it like one. Full subject का क्या मतलब है यहाँ पे? That you give it equal time as much as you give to a subject. Like अगर पॉलिटी करने के लिए आपने 10 दिन लगाए हैं, if you spend 10 days on polity, 10 days on geography, 10 days are required for PYQ analysis also, right? तो वी विल कवर अ लॉट ऑफ दीज डिटेल्स कि भाई कितना कुछ करना है, कितने साल के पीवाईक्यूज हमें देखने हैं. ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स वी विल कवर इन टुडेज सेशन. We will also be looking at a lot of PYQs, right? So I have two slides, two presentations. One is the theory part of it, and ये वाला जो presentation है, this is more the questions part of it. I will show you like a lot of questions. And then finally, we'll also have a look at prelims 2024 का paper and some extra questions from there and see कि भाई किस तरीके से हम इस चीज को देख सकते हैं. Right. Before we go any further, for those of you that are preparing for 2025, this is a course, Prelims 360, which you can check. In this course, you will get live classes which will end till the 30th of April. 30th of April तक ये classes खत्म क्यों हो जाएंगी? Because 25th of May is prelims, and we want that you should have at least 3 to 4 weeks before that in order to self-prepare. All of these things are aimed at कि भाई everything that you require to cover prelims, a test series, CSAT classes. You will also get access to 2 years of current affairs coverage, right? Practice MCQs will be included. I think somebody was asking कि भाई okay, PYQs practice करने के लिए तो सब सही है, but I need more class-based practice, as in something was covered in class. So we also provide daily practice questions. DPQs क्या होते हैं? That whatever is covered in class will be covered in those particular questions. So all of these things, you also get access to recordings of the classes as well as core mentorship. तो mentorship वाला जो part होता है इस course में, that is me, Shashank sir, Krishna sir, all of our core faculties जो हैं, those are going to be your mentors. And the price is currently with this percent discount. You can use the early bird code over here. So early bird is valid till the 25th of December, and this is all inclusive of GST and all of these things. कि भाई मतलब we don't want it कि भाई आगे जाके कुछ ऐसा लगे कि भाई extra और add हो गया. 9999 7.5% discount. That will be the thing, right? So with that, if you have any doubts about the course, you can visit courses.upscprep.com. You will get the schedule, the brochure, and all of these things over here. Coming back to PYQs. Now, पहले एक बार हम ढेर सारे थोड़े PYQs देख लेते हैं. And what I want you all to do, this is something we will figure out that after I have shown you a number of PYQs, I will try that I want you to also think about what is the category of similarity over here, right? Why? Because what we are trying to do, we are trying to here go one level higher in terms of abstraction. Abstraction is the idea that we are trying to understand patterns. We are trying to understand the categories, the subject or the, how would you say, genre का मतलब पता है सबको? There are genre of movie. Genre तो पता होगा ना? That you have thriller genre, you have horror genre, you have comedy genre, action genre. तो similarly, previous year questions have genres, right? कि भाई आपके कुछ categories of questions होते हैं that get repeated in similar manners, right? Now, this modern history question, who can tell me? Matlab, this is the kind of question which is sort of a very, very direct genre. Why? Because you have some Charter Act, Government of India Act, all of these. This was asked in 24, this was asked in 23, this was asked in 19, this was asked in 2003. तो ये क्या है? Direct, again and again, Charter Act of 1813, 1833, this category of questions keeps coming again and again and again. So, as we know, very simply put, if I have to study modern history, very, very important for me to study these, right? Because there are very few. You have 1773, 1793, uske beech mein you have Pitt's India Act. Which year was Pitt's India Act? Who can tell me? It's not very important to remember, but I want to see. Absolutely awesome. Right, so it was 1784. So 1784, so then 1773, 93, 1813, 33, 53. Then you have 18, which year? After the revolt of 1857, which is the first Council Act, not the Government of India Act of 1858. No, Council Act I'm asking. Absolutely great. There is 1861. 1861 के बाद कौन सा साल आता है? Which year after 1861? Absolutely great again, 1892. So ye 7, 8, 10 acts you have, right? After 1892, you have 1909, 1990, 1935. These are acts that you really, really need to do well. Why? Because every year almost there is a question on these acts. So like, why am I missing out on this? So simply put, make no mistake, charter acts are something that you must do if you're doing modern Indian history. Now, coming to something like art and culture, ancient medieval. So over here, Buddhism is your level of abstraction, right? Every year, almost every year, CSP 24, CSP 23, Stupa, then the names of Gautam Buddha, Shakyamuni, Tathagat, right? And then Jainism. Every year, Buddhism and Jainism pe you get a question. So this is how I also decide that these are important topics for me. I'm going to go and do these again and again and again. So ye kya hai? Again, which genre is this? This is the direct genre. Direct money. These are topics we know every year we are going to get some question or the other. Right. So please do not mistake that. Please do not think about, ki I'm going to skip this or I'm going to do this, that, XYZ. Even if there is one subject that, let's say, you don't like modern history, you don't want to do a lot of modern history, regardless of that, you have to do the charter acts, right? Because that one question I know will be there one way or the other. So, no point in ever ignoring direct questions which come in PYQ. Now, these are the related genre of questions. Right, तो ये हमारा we have a change in genre that this is CSP 23, we had in 21, in 22. So what is happening over here? We have medieval dynasties. We have the Chandela, the Parmar, Gujar Pratihar, Rashtrakutas, then again Yadavas. Moving on. Now this is the concept genre. Right? Concept genre में क्या हो रहा है? You are being asked कि भी what exactly is something doing? what is the chief purpose of the constitution? This is from CSP 23. This is from CSP 21. What is constitutional government? What is the chief purpose of the constitution? So polity mein, you will generally have a lot of, concept-based questions which are coming up, right? The concept-based genre आपका क्या है? That यहाँ पे there is one particular topic, one particular kind of concept that is being asked about, right? Now, somebody is asking, is GC Leong necessary? No, GC Leong is not strictly necessary. We talked about it previously. What I've simply said is GC Leong has all the things that NCERT said plus images. So if ever you do not understand something in geography, I would highly recommend that you check out GC Leong, because the images will make your life easier, right? Coming to the concept. तो अभी तक हमने क्या देखा? That when we're coming to modern history में हमारे direct repeat हो रहे हैं. Modern history has a lot of direct repetition. Ancient medieval art and culture has a lot of these, Buddhism, Jainism, these are also direct. Then ancient medieval mein you have related also, meaning it's not exactly the same thing as previous year, because in modern history, as we saw, it's pretty much that you have to just do at least the Councils Act and the Government of India Acts. That is bare minimum. Here, a little more detail is required. The same terms are showing up again and again and again. In polity, again, it is related concepts. And in polity, you will find that these kinds of concepts keep repeating again and again and again. So this can also be called a direct in polity, right? Article 368 deals with what? Who can tell me in chat? Obviously, the question is right in front of you. Right, amendment. So bar you will see almost, these are two questions that are related to somewhere amendment in 24 itself. One is a direct question from amendment. One is a not direct but related, because this is asking you about the different parts of the constitution. How many of you had read of these sorts of parts of the constitution? Yes or no? We have all seen articles. We've all seen ki, what is part 4A of the constitution? Who can tell me in chat? What is part 4A? No, part 4. Yes, absolutely great. It is not DPSP, it is fundamental duties. Part 3 is fundamental rights. Part 4 is directive principles of state policy. And part 4A is your fundamental duties. So ये parts क्या हैं? This simply shows that you have read the bare acts of the constitution. How many of you have read the bare acts of the constitution? Bare act क्या मतलब होता है? Bare act में बहुत ज्यादा हमें दिमाग नहीं लगाना. I'll just give you an example of how you can go about reading bare acts. Article 368. Right, so bare act पढ़ने के लिए हमें कुछ नहीं करना है. You can go to any, website for this. Live Law is one, Indian Qanun is another. There are multiple mobile apps for this also. When we say bare act of the constitution, that means I am going and actually reading what is written in Article 368. Right? When you are starting polity, first, obviously, you read Lakshmikant or whatever book that you're doing for polity, but then you also come and read the actual language of this act. Right? कि भाई क्या लिखा है? Sometimes it will be confusing when you read language like this. Notwithstanding anything in this constitution, Parliament may, in exercise of its constitutional power, amend by way of addition, variation, or repeal. Right? If you had read the bare act of the constitution, this is a direct question, is this not? If you had read that bare act of the constitution, is this not a direct question in prelims 2024? So that is why I'm saying previous year questions, because you're constantly getting questions related to, fundamental rights, right to privacy, variations, all of these things you are constantly getting questions for. So therefore, it is your job to go and read these bare acts. How many of you have read Article 19, the bare act? Yes or no? Absolutely great. I think almost everybody has read the bare act of the Constitution here. So you can read from any different source. Matlab you can read it from PM Bakshi, or aajkal, the Constitution of India is also available in a very, very pretty looking book. Let me just show you. Right, so this is the Constitution of India. It's a very nice gold leaf foil, 300 rupees का book है ये. इसमें every, major article, not every major, every article is given, and it's also a very pretty book. So why would you not want to get a copy of the Constitution of India? Right, the Constitution of India, once you have gone through, once you see these types of options in the paper, it is your job to go and see, okay, what exactly was changed by the First Amendment, right? Because if I'm talking about First Amendment, so there are further questions that keep getting repeated. Like, I think there was a question also on Schedule 9 of the Constitution of India. Schedule 9 is also related to the First Amendment. So, jab ye specific numbers that are being given to you over here, so this is your job that you go and study these also. Doing PYQs, when we come to the theory aspect of it, this is what you have to go back down and do. You have to go and read these bare acts. You have to spend some time with the subject. So polity mein, as we see, there are some concepts, and then there are most direct questions that are coming, right? Polity mein, every year almost something related to amendments, something related to fundamental rights. Every year, almost, these are two questions directly related to Article 368 and different parts of the Constitution. Then every year, 24, 23 fundamental rights related question aapko aa raha hai. And then almost every other year, you are getting a question related to Speaker or Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha, right? CSP 22, CSP 24. Speaker of Lok Sabha, Deputy Speaker of Lok Sabha. So, are you getting the sort of pattern here? How many of you, are able to understand that there is some sort of underlying pattern of PYQs? You may not be able to, fully say, okay, this is exactly what it is. But are you seeing some similarity? Because if you're seeing some similarity, that's the first step. That is the first step towards understanding what exactly is it that UPSC demands from you, right? If you're not fully understanding it a bit, don't worry. I'll also give you the theory of kya hai, kyun hai. All of these things will also be available on our Telegram channel. We'll share in the evening. And जो session वगैरह है, इसकी recording भी will make available later on. So please don't be worried about that if you've missed something. But again, polity में, anytime that there is a presidential election, right? When was the last election held for the post of President of India? Who can tell me which year? Right. So this was a trick question. Because a lot of people, just because the question is from CSP 23, have said that, 2023 was the presidential election. No, presidential election was in 2022. And before that, it was in 2017. But, again, something very clearly visible, right? That every time that there's a presidential election, the year after that, or in probably the same year, you will get a question in prelims related to the election of the president, right? So these are very simple current affairs related events, CA related. That if there is some major change in terms of the constitutional, provisions, or in terms of the constitutional functioning, or if there is some major, Supreme Court judgment, because Which Supreme Court judgment does this question deal with? Who can tell me what is the name of the judgment where right to privacy was given the status of fundamental rights? Absolutely awesome. Justice Puttaswamy judgment. So Justice Puttaswamy was a retired justice and he brought up a case in the Supreme Court, and the case eventually said that right to privacy is a fundamental right. So that case came up in 2019. So ऐसा नहीं है that this is something absolutely new. That is a case from 2019. You get a question in 2024. That does not mean that every major judgment I'm going to go and rectify. But is it not also fair to say that right to privacy, data localization, data colonization, these are things that have been in the news ever since then? Yes or no? Data is something that we have been more and more fixated with, more and more concerned with in terms of regulation in the last couple of years. Therefore, this is still very, very relevant. Right? तो पॉलिटी में करंट अफेयर्स से रिलेटेड भी चीजें आ गई हमें. एंड देन अनदर वेरी वेरी frequently referenced area, schedule areas, fifth schedule, sixth schedule, what are the different schedule areas, who administers the schedule areas. So polity mein you will find that there are very few common areas. Either they're asking you very direct questions, what is constitutional government, what does liberal democracy mean, or they'll be asking you, very simply put, amendments to the constitution, or fundamental rights, fundamental duties, DPSP. The core basics of polity are this. Everything else, center state relation hai nahi hai kya hai, you get questions from that. It's not like you don't, but it is much more likely that these common areas you'll get repeat questions from. Right? Coming to economy, अगर economy की बात हम करें, so again, look at finance bill, money bill, finance bill, money bill, finance bill, money bill. Every 2-3 years, you get a question on finance bill and money bill. So, you can say that this is polity, but this is also economy. Primarily, since we're talking about, the repetition in terms of the polity, तो ये भी आपका एक polity का concept वाला PYQ बन जाएगा. If we talk about economy per se directly, तो economy में how many of you have read economic survey? So economic survey, the good thing that the government of India has done now is economic survey comes in 3 major booklets. One is the actual survey. Then you have the statistical appendix. And number 3, government of India itself is coming out with a summary document. It is a 30-page summary. ये आपके लिए necessity है. Why? Every year in economy, 1 or 2 questions are directly coming from these 30 pages. Right? This is the highest value resource for you. Why? Because this will be absolutely useful for you in mains also. And in prelims, you will be able to, either directly get questions from this, or at least you'll be able to eliminate some options here and there. So, so Gaurav is asking a very good question, which is that I haven't read the previous economic survey. If I read the new one, will that be okay? Yes. Whichever year you are giving the exam in, whichever year you are giving the exam in, that year ka economic survey you have to read. Right? If you have more time, which is rare, if you're somebody who has finished everything and has more time, then you can probably go back and read 1 or 2 years before economic survey also. But if you're giving in 25, economic survey of 2025 is more than enough to begin with. Right? Environment में अगर हम देखें, so there are some species, like for example, the lion-tailed macaque keeps getting repeated again and again. Now, there are obviously some important species. Schedule 1 species. Yes, Schedule 1 is related to which act? How many you can tell me? Right. So this is related to the Wildlife Protection Act. And as somebody was asking, how can you download the economic survey? You have to Google. Simply, you will Google, you will end up at this website, indianbudget.gov.in, and over there, you have the economic survey. Highlights of the budget you can get from here. All the basic things you can get over here. Finance bill, all of these you don't have to read. None of these things you have to read. But यहाँ पे आपको all details, all information that you require, you will find. Here, previous union budget, previous economic survey. So economic survey 2023-24, we have come over here. And statistical appendix, economic survey. तो economic survey का brief आपको सारा यहाँ पे मिल जाएगा. What you can also do, if you search, you will also find a PIB summary of the economic survey. All of these things, Google once. Google is your best friend. ठीक है? Environment में there are obviously some these sorts of repeated questions which are related to extremes. Mostly in environment, you'll get a lot of these extreme type, questions. So this is from 2023. Extreme or ambiguous statements. Like some mushrooms have medicinal properties. Now, I don't know about all mushrooms, but I'm sure some will have psychoactive properties. If you watch Joe Rogan episode, so Joe Rogan experience, so you definitely know this. Some have insecticidal properties, some have bioluminescent properties. So some karke, some, yes, probably. So similarly, although these kinds of statements are, not as frequent in prelims, these are less frequent in prelims now. But again, it's a category that you want to look at. Now, this type of question, this is from CSP 23 again. This is from 2008. So, species, particularly flagship species. Flagship species क्या होती हैं? मतलब who can give me a couple of examples of some flagship species? Right? Tiger is one, panda is one, fox, I would not say, rhino, great Indian bustard. Flagship species are big species that are popular, right? Flagship species, a very simple way to think about it is that if you go to a particular wildlife sanctuary, what is a species that you would be excited to see, right? You'd be excited to see a tiger, you'd be excited to see like a lion, you'd be excited to see a rhino, an elephant, right? You will probably not be very excited to see a squirrel. Still, this is not a very, how do you say, concrete definition, but that is a general definition that if there is a gorilla, there is an orangutan, these will be considered very important species for their particular, environments. So, carbon markets, again, carbon markets is again a very commonly repeated question. And then आपके types of trees. So these are all things that are available in your NCRTs for geography. NCRTs में आप जाओगे तो deciduous, moist deciduous, and even rainforest type, you'll get a lot of kinds of trees. Like for example, sandalwood. How many of you can tell me which wood category, which kind of forest is sandalwood found in? So some people took the easy way out when they said that deciduous forests. Some are saying tropical rainforest. No, you don't find sandalwood in tropical rainforest. Think of sand. See, I'll show you how you can think about these things. Sandalwood. Everybody knows the greatest dacoit associated with sandalwood. Who can tell me the name? Veerappan. Right. Which area of India was Veerappan in? Which area of India was Veerappan in? The Karnataka forests, right? The Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala border area, in those areas. Do we have tropical rainforest there? Right. So I'm not saying ki, tropical is the right answer. I'm not saying deciduous is the right answer. But what I'm saying is ki this is how you can think about it. That, okay, I know Veerappan was associated with sandalwood. And Veerappan was found in these areas of Karnataka. In these areas of Karnataka, I am at least very, very sure about the fact that there is no tropical rainforest. India has tropical rainforest, right? But not in the area that Veerappan was found in. Therefore, if I'm getting a question on sandalwood, it is probably not related to tropical rainforest. Did you follow this logic? Yes or no? ये लॉजिक समझ आया आपको? So this is the sort of presence of mind that you have to have in the exam, because in the exam it will not be that you will know everything, right? The core idea that I'm sharing over here is you have to learn to associate things. How? Like for example, we were talking about sandalwood. Somebody asked me to repeat, so I'm repeating again. Sandalwood say I related Veerappan. Right, Veerappan was one of the great dacoits of sandalwood, or smugglers. And Veerappan was associated with an area of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala border. Right, I know the general area that Veerappan was in. I also know from the maps that I have seen that in those areas there is no tropical rainforest. Rainforest is not there. If there is no rainforest, so then I can say, right, that sandalwood should not be related to rainforest. The correlation, again, sometimes you will be mistaken, sometimes you will be, making a problematic assumption in this manner, but 80% of the time, if you can follow a chain of thought, it will become easier for you. And what are previous year questions telling you? Previous year questions are simply telling you what major areas should you focus on in terms of developing this kind of logic, right? The fundamental rights, बहुत बार, if you've read them multiple times, it will become easier for you to relate these sorts of things. Now, these are questions like, for example, in 2006, there was the option was ilmenite, and then ilmenite and rutile pe you had a question directly in 2023. So, halaki, to begin with, now this is where we come to the question where somebody asked, how many years of PYQs am I supposed to do? Start with 5 years. Start with 5 years, go to 10. At best, if you have more time, I would go till 2011. 2011 to 2024. These 14 years, if you can do, it's absolutely great. If you have more time, go further back. Don't go back till 1980s, 1990s just for the sake of it. Start with 5 years. Start from 2020 onwards. Then 5 more years. Then 5 more years. इस तरीके से आप पीछे जाओ. So, Jyoti has asked a very important question, which is, do I get a book for this or do I do it by myself? I would suggest you do it by yourself first. Yourself first. Why am I saying do it yourself first? You have to develop that thought process, right? I have to be able to look at the paper and say, okay, is this question related to some of the other things I've seen before? Like, for example, isothermal maps. Okay, yes, I've seen this before. Where have I seen this before? I have similar kinds of questions being asked. When you take a book which does this directly for you, so this process where you actually go and think and then you try and flip through the last 3 years, 4 years ka papers and see, okay, are isotherms related questions asked before, right? Because then when you go and find those things, you will find that, okay, again and again and again, these sorts of questions are being asked. And let's say, for example, you have this question on Coriolis force. So Coriolis force is again one of those things you keep getting questions. This kind of question, very simple and straightforward. You also get such questions in CSAT. How many of you have seen such questions in CSAT? Here, the question is related to geography in that it is asking you, which will get more than 12 hours of sunlight. But in CSAT, you might get asked, what day is it? Right? June 21 is on a Tuesday in 2024. What day will it be in 2025? Cheese, रिलेटेड चीजों से ही आसपास वो पूछते रहते हैं, तो यू ऑल्सो हैव टू लर्न टू रिलेट. जस्ट कीप थिंकिंग, द मोर पेपर्स दैट यू सी, द easier it will be for you. Once you have done the basic thing for 5 years, once you have done it for 5 years, then get a book, then get any of these PYQ booklets, and then make your life slightly easier. First do it for 5 years, then get the book. That's what I'm exactly saying. तो ये चीजें छोड़ के एक बार वापस आते हैं ज्योग्राफी में, और हम देखेंगे यूरेनियम. यूरेनियम से रिलेटेड अगेन वी कीप गेटिंग क्वेश्चंस ज्योग्राफी में. दिस इज 2024 terrestrial radiation, terrestrial radiation, terrestrial radiation. One topic, it is almost a direct repeat of the same topic. So geography, maybe you are getting a lot of directly repeated questions, right? Then ये kind of कि भाई where do you find tropical rainforests, or where do you find these kinds of forests? So geography, maybe you have these categories of questions that are coming up. Who can tell me of the categories that we had created so far? What are the types, or what are the categories of repetition of PYQs in geography? We had discussed direct, we had discussed related, we had discussed concept. Right, so we have a lot of direct questions that are being repeated. जैसे कि ये डायरेक्ट रिपीट है हमारा अगेन एंड अगेन. टेरेस्ट्रियल रेडिएशन से रिलेटेड देयर इज अ क्वेश्चन व्हिच इज कमिंग अप. 22 में इट केम, 23 में इट केम, 24 में इट केम. नाउ डू आई हैव टू से दैट यू हैव टू गो एंड स्टडी इट फॉर 25? No, this is something that you realize once you start reading PYQs. Spend time with PYQs as a subject, right? Now this is your concept based, because every other year you will see one or the other question related to this sort of a thing, where they will say, this is the criteria or the condition in which this is found. What type of environment is this? तो ये क्वेश्चंस आपके आते रहते हैं बार बार. Similarly, you get some industry related questions in geography, and science and tech may a lot of the times based on what tests are being done. Right, so like this is a question related to the Agni 2 missile, Agni missile. So whenever there is a major test done with the respect of Agni, so Agni 4, then Agni 5. When we have Agni 6, whenever there's a test fire, you can be sure that there will be a question that will be asked related to Agni 6. Right. So is this discussion clear to everyone? Any doubts so far? कि भाई हर subject में, in every subject there are previous year questions are directly telling you a lot of the times that this is important, read this, study this. How many of you got that sense after this discussion? Because now we will go back into exactly looking into कि भाई कैसे करना है. Did anybody not get a sense of it? Right, so most of the people attending have got it. Okay, so this is again course के बारे में. If you want to see, you can go check. Wait. Now, coming to the theoretical discussion of PYQ analysis, what, how, and why. So, simply put, we have discussed why do we need to do PYQs? We are trying to understand important themes. We are trying to understand what are the exam standards, and we are trying to avoid surprises. How are we avoiding surprises? This is the first thing that we discussed, that even in CSP 24, how many questions were direct or related, repeated to according to PYQs? We discussed that. 2. 22. Yeah. So I'm avoiding surprises because 20, not 4, 22 questions even in this year were repeated. Meaning we also discussed that we have to do approximately 50 questions in order to clear this exam, of which 22 are right here. There's a very, very strong reason for you why you should, do PYQs. right? Then complexity of questions, it gets you used to the language of the exam. Because see, not everybody is equally comfortable with English, and sometimes the language itself of the paper can be confusing. So getting the sense of the language of how these sorts of things are being done again and again and again makes it so much more likely that you will be not making basic mistakes in the exam. Basic mistakes kya hai? That I misunderstood the demand of the question. How many times has it happened with you? Let me know, yes or no, that you knew a question, but you somehow misinterpreted a word and you got it wrong. Yes or no? So if so many people are having this problem that, basic cheese in polity or maybe in economy, the technical subjects that you have, there you misinterpreted, you did not understand the exact language of what was being asked, and then you made a mistake. This is another reason why you should really, really be doing PYQs, because PYQs will give you a sense of that. Okay, this is the language which UPSC keeps asking. And like we just saw with a lot of detail, each and every subject will give you some trends, some strategic studying, and obviously notes. So notes ke liye, you can have your own notes, you can make short notes from the books, or you can check out a lot of free material is also available on our website, upscprep.com. So all of these things are originating through PYQs. PYQs, there are 4 ways in which you can directly boost marks with PYQs. Questions from options, questions related to important themes. Themes wali cheezein we have just discussed. How many of you understood themes? I will also give you a more detailed document related to themes. It will be available on the Telegram channel. So ये themes वाला जो document है that I'll be sharing with you. But how many of you have understood or gotten some sense of the themes that are repeated in multiple subjects? Good. Now, at times, sometimes when UPSC gets lazy with quality control, what happens is that they have repeated a direct question that they have repeated. And obviously, some common sense related things that you have to figure out based on, okay, these are also kinds of questions that are being asked. Common sense wale questions bhi humne dekhe the, but like, let's just go deep dive again. अब तक हमने क्या देखा था? We have seen a lot of the questions. We have seen a lot of the data. Right? Now, what are we doing? We are going into abstraction and we are going to categorize this data. ये चीज समझ आई? Everybody understood what I'm trying to say here when I say that we are going to categorize this data. What we saw in the previous set of questions, what we saw in the previous set of questions is, previous slide, is that we had a lot of themes, a lot of questions. Almost every slide had 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3 questions, and we had about 30 slides. So we had 60 some questions. Now let's create categories of those 60 questions. Number one category is obviously your repeated themes. Now repeated themes में आपका एक बहुत ही basic process आता है. This is the process that we're going to be talking about how to deal with such kinds of questions. Like, एक तो हो गया हमारा repeated theme where we have questions about the Charter Acts, the Government of India Acts. Those are pretty direct, right? Those are some things that are given directly in your book. There is no process of it. You just have to go open the book, review them multiple times, make sure that you don't make a mistake in those particular questions. But there are some repeat types of questions wherein, like, you're getting questions related to minerals, you're really getting questions related to biomes, right? You're getting questions related to, okay, is this grassland? Is this tropical rainforest? Is this deciduous forest? What kind of forest is this? What kind of animal is found here? For this, this sort of process you can adopt. Process kya hai? I'm getting a question, like for example, this question from Prelims 2019 about topic here is resources, particularly major mineral, within that coal. How many major minerals do we have? Who can tell me? How many major minerals do we have? Malab, I don't know what the exact number. Is it more than 10? Is it less than 10? Is it more than 50? More than 100? How many major minerals do we have? Mahesh has a very specific answer, right? Good. Now, since most of you were not very sure of how many exactly do we have, but major minerals is something that we keep getting questions about. So this is something that you have to figure out, okay, how many major minerals are there? And then, just like I'm doing basics of the coal sector, I should probably do the basics of each major sector related to each major mineral. Right? If I'm getting questions related to one mineral, that does not mean that, I'll keep getting questions related to this mineral only. It means that I'm getting questions related to major minerals. And therefore, I need to have a basic understanding of all major minerals. Right? So, coal, iron, so on and so forth, आपके जो मेजर हैं उन सब के बारे में एक बेसिक ब्रीफ आप ले लो. The good thing about this is that these are directly covered in the NCRTs, right? Class 11th and 12th ki NCRTs, if you do, most of your major minerals will already be covered over there. You just need to go and see if am I missing something, right? तो ये process आपको करना है. Second step इस process में Google the basics of that. You can do coal sector UPSC. आज की डेट में जो आपके AI tools आ गए हैं, चैट जीपीटी, जेमिनाई, परप्लेक्सिटी, you can also use any of them. Any of them you can use, and I would highly recommend that you, while you are doing the first reading, second reading, you try and use these tools. Now Chandrajyoti has said, should I learn all rare earth minerals? No, not at all. Rare earth minerals, one, by definition, are not major minerals. But second, rare earth minerals are a lot in news. So we are not going to do rare earth minerals because it is important as per the trend analysis of PYQs. We are going to do rare earth minerals because it is being repeated again and again in news. Who had heard the recent news where China had banned exports of rare earth minerals for USA? Yes or no? है कि नहीं? Now who can tell me how much supply of rare earth minerals does China control? 10, 20, 40, 50, 100? राइट. तो देखो अब इस पे भी some are saying 50%, some are saying 70%, some are saying 80%, 30%, 40%. Good. Rare earth minerals is so much in news. These are the sorts of things that you should basic, बहुत basic level पे आप बस इतना करोगे ना, rare earth minerals UPSC India, all that you have to Google, and you'll find out that 70 to 80% of all global supply of rare earth is controlled by China. So therefore, if China says that we are not exporting, we are going to have a problem. Then you make your one pager notes. That is it. One pager notes में क्या है? Mineral. Okay, India का reserves कितना है? Who is the largest producer? Who is, what is the position of India? Does India have an import policy? Top states for production, availability, and types of coal or types of iron. What are the types that are more available in India? ये half a page का note है ये. And after this half page into, let's say, 10, 12, meaning 7, 8, 10, 12 minerals, you'll have 6 to 7 pages. And this is all that you have to revise. Does that make your life easier? Yes or no? तो ये इधर नोट बनाना होता है. A lot of people keep asking me that, what am I supposed to make a notes of in prelims? You have to identify trends and problems. अब जैसे history में we saw that repeatedly again and again and again you are getting questions related to the charter acts. Make a table. Make sure कि you don't make a mistake any given time, any given moment. तुमको सोते हुए somebody asks you in your sleep that, what happened in the charter act of 1853, you should be able to tell correctly, because that is a question that is again and again being asked. So there is no excuse for making a mistake in those areas which are constantly, completely being repeated, right? तो ये process आपका repeat होता रहेगा. This process gets repeated for all major minerals. Okay, all major minerals के लिए you repeat the process, particularly ones that are being mentioned again and again in prelims. Now ये क्वेश्चन अब जैसे प्रीलिम्स 2023 का क्वेश्चन है, if you had studied the basics, you will be able to do this question even though you have not directly read anything about this question, right? So if इकोनॉमिक सर्वे आपने पढ़ा है, तो जैसे इकोनॉमिक सर्वे से डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन नहीं है ये, बट इकोनॉमिक सर्वे विल टेल यू कि ओके 50 to 60% ऑफ इंडियाज इलेक्ट्रिसिटी प्रोडक्शन इज कोल. So then we know that the first statement is correct. Even though current affairs are related hai, we are using a lot of peripheral information. Why? Because economic survey is a document we have realized is very important based on what we see in PYQs. And economic survey is helping you solve these sorts of questions again and again. Right? So keep paying attention कि भाई क्या ट्रेंड्स हैं, क्या पैटर्न्स हैं. जैसे पॉलिटी का प्रेसिडेंट वाला रिपीट होता है. So those of you who are going to be here for a while, 2027 में you are going to get the next presidential election. So I can predict a question in prelims 2028, right? Can we not? तो इस तरीके से हमें देखना है that we have to understand. Okay, Lakshmi is asking that please repeat second step. Second step क्या है? It is the same process that we're going. When we find a repeated theme, you Google that theme. First and foremost, you identify the theme. For example, this is a question related to coal, right? We have identified the theme as major minerals. Of those major minerals, we have identified that, coal is one of the major mineral. Then we Google all of it, use AI tools over here. Google के बाद make basic notes. माने कि half a page of notes for coal, जहां पे what you're talking about is what is India's position. Like for example, India has one of the largest reserves of coal in the world, but India does not have very high quality coal, right? Anthracite is the highest quality coal. India does not have this. India has a lot of bituminous coal, right? It has a lot of ash content. तो कार्बन कंटेंट यहाँ पे नॉट कार्बन कंटेंट, इसमें एश कंटेंट, सल्फर कंटेंट इन इंडियन कोल इज मोर, therefore it is not the best coal. So therefore India still has to import some coking coal, right? So all of these things, once you have done, you repeat for other major minerals. Step 4, repeat, right? तो ये बेसिक है हमारा. अब यहाँ पे इकोनॉमी की जैसे हम बात कर रहे थे, we were talking about economy. So economy में look at this sort of repeated question that every year almost there is some question or the other related to what is the RBI doing, right? कि RBI is conducting sterilization or RBI has reduced CRR. So all of these will be concept based questions, but we have recognized a theme within the concepts that something related to RBI is asked irrespective of, anything, one way or the other. They will be able to, they will be asking some question related to the RBI every damn year. So now that I've realized that, that is where you have to understand, you have to go a little deeper. Because अगर आप देखो तो बोलने को sterilization and open market operation sound like very different things, but in practice they're getting something very similar done, right? Yes or no? ये चीज समझ आई? तो अब अगर बाय चांस if I'm asked a random question related to amendment process of the Constitution of India, would you say that this is related to PYQs or not? Yes or no? I'm getting a question related to amendment process. I'm getting a question related to, let's say, fundamental rights. So then you can't be like, they have never asked a question about fundamental right given in Article 29 before. No, we have recognized that fundamental rights are important. So all fundamental rights need to be done in depth. So similarly, economy way, you will find themes like RBI ka monetary policy operations are very, very important. And therefore, in one form or the other, you will find it repeated again and again and again. Right? So similarly, this is another Janani Suraksha Yojana, Janani Suraksha Yojana, and this is why I had the prelims this year ka paper out, because यहाँ पे भी जननी सुरक्षा योजना डायरेक्टली नहीं है, बट सुरक्षित सुरक्षित मातृत्व अभियान, इज दिस नॉट द सेम टॉपिक? Is this not the same area that somewhere or the other, the schemes related to safe motherhood, the schemes related to, you know, childbirth in hospitals, so prenatal and postnatal care, health ka theme, maternal care within health ka theme. This is something that is repeated again and again and again. If there is a new scheme that is coming up in this area, so that becomes very important for you to do, right? So this is the point of doing PYQs. Now coming to the other part, the options. Now options in PYQ में क्या करना है आपको? So far what we have talked about is themes in PYQs. Now we are coming to a little more deep dive. Deep dive में अब हमें देखना है that, for example, somebody was just asking me कि now a lot of questions are being asked about Africa. But if I'm being honest, it is not particularly Africa, but it is rather Sub-Saharan Africa, a region which is also known as Sahel. Right? क्योंकि 2022 में there's a question from here, 2023 prelims में there's a question from here, and we also have a question related to the Sahel in 2024. I zoom out. What happened? Right. Where is the Sahel region over here? Page 20. Right. So in 2024, also you have a question related to the Sahel region. So the Sahel region is something that is in question again and again. Now people are saying, African countries are rahi hain, nahi aa rahi hain. Chad, Guinea, Mali, Chad, Guinea, Tunisia. What is the Sahel region? If I have to look at the Sahel region, let me just open it up on the map for you. I need the images. Right, so can you see this image? What are the countries here? Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, Sudan. यही तो सारी कंट्रीज हैं जो बार बार आपसे क्वेश्चंस में पूछी जा रही हैं, राइट? तो इट इज नॉट ऑल ऑफ अफ्रीका. It is because of the political turmoil in this region that every year, one way or another, you are being asked a lot of questions with regards to the Sahel region. So you also have to understand, now this is where going one level deeper comes in. Why is India interested in all of this? Now ये one level deeper जो है, फर्स्ट डिग्री तो हमने कर लिया कि भाई ऑप्शन से रिलेटेड वी वांट टू स्टडी आल्सो, राइट? तो यहाँ पे लेबनान गिवन है. नाउ हु कैन टेल मी व्हाई लेबनान हैज बीन इन न्यूज रिसेंटली? Why has Lebanon been, or like give me one sort of a neighbor of Lebanon, one important, right? The Israel-Gaza conflict that is going on. So Lebanon has a neighbor with which, there have been escalations, there have been problems because of the, Hezbollah terrorists and like Hamas and all of these organizations. But again, आपको क्या करना है? Because you have been given these particular countries. How many of you, before I showed you the map, knew exactly where Chad was in Africa? Yes or no? So good that a lot of people are saying yes, but a lot of people who said no, what were you waiting for? Well, Chad has now been mentioned two times. Prelims 22, 23, and in 24 they talked about Sahel. Well, how many more times do they have to mention it for you to finally figure out कि okay, this is something important and I should probably look at it. तो ऑप्शंस में आप जैसे देखोगे आप, तो फॉर एग्जांपल जैनिज्म, वी हैड टॉक्ड अबाउट दैट we keep getting questions from Jainism again and again, but what exact topic on Jainism? So if you go into the options, so for example, this option in 2013 became a whole question in 2023. Right. So this is how we have to use previous year questions. We have to look at each and every option. We have to go and see, okay, that's why I'm saying कि भी okay, Lebanon से related अभी कुछ नहीं हो रहा, but now recently in the last 1 year, a lot of things have happened with Lebanon. So I should really, really go and study what is happening in and around Lebanon. If not, I should actually look at the map. कि okay, who is the northern neighbor of Lebanon? Who's the eastern neighbor? Who's the southern neighbor? How many countries are next to Lebanon? So this sort of a second degree analysis where you are studying the options of previous questions is another great way for you to understand what UPSC is going to pay attention to. And there is a very basic logic to this, right? कि देखो, UPSC is also a body which is getting questions made. राइट? यूपीएससी ऐसा खुद से बैठ के, मतलब यूपीएससी का चेयरमैन इज नॉट मेकिंग क्वेश्चंस टू गिव इन एवरी एग्जाम. दे आर गेटिंग क्वेश्चंस मेड बाय एन एक्सपर्ट टीम, राइट? सो व्हेन दे डू दैट, what do they say to these people? That these are the last 5 year 10 year questions. We want questions of this quality, we want questions of this kind to be made for the coming year. So therefore, if the examiners are looking at the last 10 year questions to make the next year ka question, you should also. Now a very, very good question, a very fair point which has been raised over here by Mr. Smart Guy is that, not Smart Guy, I think Lakshmi is asking that, are we supposed to read everything about Chad, Lebanon, like river bordering countries? No. But you should look at the map at least. Okay, where is Chad? Is it West Africa? Is it East Africa? Is it Central Africa? Right? You should have a general sense of what is happening in this region. Why are there so many conflicts that are happening in this particular region? And is there any future end date to these conflicts? Is it getting resolved, or these are things that are going to stay like that? So Neha is also asking when to cover PYQs, before, during, after. I would say after each subject, spend 2 days. After each subject is done, spend 2 days just looking at PYQs, just analyzing PYQs and highlighting the important topics. This is if you're in the first reading. In the second reading, read alongside. Alongside mane, whenever you're revising a chapter, look at PYQs first. Okay, these are the kinds of questions being asked. Now let me go and revise the chapter. Okay. Third reading is when you're making those short notes. Short notes are based on your analysis of trends and patterns, right? Now, this is obviously a rarer thing. Why? Because ये हुआ है, this has happened 2019 and 2021 prelims. Exact question was repeated. So, you know, if somebody had paid attention, this would have been a good year to get some extra marks. यही चीजें हैं जो हमें ध्यान रखनी है, राइट? यही चीजें हैं that we have to pay constant attention to, because PYQs are giving you so much info. So spend that time here, get used to it. Finally, we come to common sense. Common sense में हम क्या बात कर रहे हैं, that PYQs every year have some very interesting, events that take place. Like, for example, how many of you have seen this question before? Number 26. Have you seen this question before? Yes or no? Good. So let's try and attempt this question. तो अटेम्प्ट करते हैं, हम देखते हैं. With the reference to the book Desher Katha written by Sakharam Ganesh Devskar during the freedom struggle, consider the following statements. It warned against the colonial states' hypnotic conquest of the mind. अभी I'll tell you a real story. Real story में क्या होता है, that this is a question from CSP 20, meaning Prelims 2020. This was the 6th attempt that I was giving in the Civil Services Exam. And when I was giving this attempt, so, obviously I have spent 6 years preparing for this exam. I have cleared this exam twice. So I was confident about, I know things. But in that exam, for the first time, I had read of this book. For the first time, I had read of this person. This person had not been mentioned in any of the books before then. This book had not been mentioned anywhere before that. So, how do you deal with this? This is where having presence of mind in the exam can be very useful. कि भाई अभी मैंने, if I've not read of the book, if I've not heard of the name of the author, how am I supposed to know anything, right? How many of you would follow that same logic and say that I don't know the book, I don't know the author, I'm going to skip this question? Yes or no? Because I'll be honest, I skipped this question in the first time. कि भाई मतलब I don't know anything about this, तो मतलब I'm not even going to attempt this, let me move on. So it's a very good question to skip. But don't skip questions before reading it completely. Right? Don't skip it before reading it completely. Now, a lot of you are saying 1, 2, 3, 2 and 3. This is where you have to understand the beauty of this question, that this name, Sakharam Ganesh Devskar, is Marathi. And option 3 says that Desh by Devskar was in context of Bengal. Doesn't make sense, does it? Sakharam is a very common Marathi name. So now, if you're not from Maharashtra, if you're not from that region, or you're not even aware, so then obviously this is a question that is worth skipping. But if you keep your mind open, so there are things like this that you will find that, okay, if option 3 is removed, I only have one correct answer. Right? So similarly, in question number 28, I think this was also from CSP 20. So example क्या है यहाँ पे? Again, I have given 6 attempts. I have this, that, XYZ. I am confident that I know things, but I also know that I have never heard of Vittal Vidwansak. Right? I have never heard of Vittal Vidwansak. तो यहाँ पे common sense से मैं क्या बोलूंगा? That I have heard of a lot of things written by Jyotiba Phule. I have heard a lot of things written by Gandhiji, by Dr. Ambedkar. Because these are three people, if you've read modern history, you will find them again and again and again, right? Do you agree with me that if you've read modern history, Jyotiba Phule, Gandhiji, and Dr. Ambedkar, these are three people, you will know, ki, okay, he wrote this, he wrote that newspaper, he wrote this, he wrote that newspaper. Gopal Baba Walankar is again one name that I had not heard of, and then I had not heard of the, title also. So in some senses, this sort of connection you can build, but please keep in mind that this is only when I am confident that these three have not probably written it, otherwise I would have heard of it. राइट तो ये इस तरीके से आप क्या कर सकते हो, कॉमन सेंस निकाल सकते हो. You can figure out that there are ways to solve questions without actually having all of the information required. So this is not guaranteed कि भाई ऐसा क्वेश्चन आएगा ही आएगा, but if you keep an open mind, you can make use of these kinds of opportunities. And PYQs are telling you that this is not one-off. This is something that keeps happening every other year. So even when you don't know anything about this question, I don't know Desha Katha, I don't know Sakharam Deoskar, I don't know Vital Vidwansak, I don't know. Even in such a case, just read the question completely. Keep an open mind, stay calm, and you will make some or the other progress. Another common sense pattern that you will find a lot of the times is these sorts of statements, right? So whenever there is a statement which is saying some or a statement which is saying all, like for example, if the statement says all species of turtles are herbivores, all species of fish are this, that, XYZ, I know for a fact that there will be some exception, right? If we know one thing, there is always some or the other exception. So when a strong statement that is saying all or never or every time, you should be doubtful. I'm not saying it will be 100% wrong, but you should be doubtful of that statement. If you can disprove such a strong statement, क्योंकि all वाले जो statements होते हैं ना, they are very easy to disprove. I can think of one example. Okay, does a turtle eat fish? Okay, I had seen that one video on Discovery that I had seen a turtle eating fish. So then I know that all turtles cannot be herbivores. But here, since it is saying some species, here I can say, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. So whenever you have this some, all, never, these kinds of statements, so then look at the statement itself rather than the contents of the statement. I don't know a lot about turtles. I don't know if they're all herbivores. But if they're saying some turtles are herbivores, I'm sure some turtles are herbivores. Right? So Antara is asking, after having gone through the same PYQs multiple times and knowing the right answers, one might lose perspective and become complacent. Right, good. So Antara is saying that, after solving these multiple times and after, knowing, okay, this is what it is, we can become complacent. So complacency comes when you think you know everything. But now in this particular question, there is so much for you to learn, right? This particular question, again, इसमें बहुत ज्यादा डेप्थ में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है क्योंकि फिर it misleads you. These are the kinds of common sense questions जहां पे बहुत डेप्थ में मत जाओ. But this kind of question कि भाई money multiplier क्या है? This is something that we want to talk a lot about, right? If we have major minerals, if we have Jainism, Buddhism, go deeper into the options. If you feel that I know the answer, it's fine. Go look at all the options, right? If Jainism does not say this, is there any other doctrine that says this? What does Buddhism say about the soul? Right? तो इस तरीके से आपको क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग अपने आप से भी करते रहना है. राइट? तो कॉमन सेंस की और अगर बात करें तो जैसे strong words we were talking about, none of them use sea water, none of them are settled in water stress district, none of them is privately owned. So you're saying there are coal-based thermal power plants in India, none of them is privately owned. That is not correct. I'm sure there is some that is privately owned, right? Curiosity and exploration is the idea over here. Ki now this question may, why don't you go and find which one are privately owned? Right? Ki bhai, is it just related to coal or are there private natural gas based power plants also? What are the private power plants? Is there any private nuclear power plant in India? Is there a private nuclear power plant in the West? Is it even possible to have a nuclear power plant as a private power plant? तो ये क्यूरियोसिटी है कि जब आपको ये सब चीजें देखोगे, your life will become easier. Like recently, I think you might have heard the news that Google, Meta, and Microsoft are investing in nuclear power plants. How many of you had heard this news? Yes or no? So if you've not heard of this news, it's fine. But those of you that have heard of it, what does it mean to invest in nuclear power plants? Does it mean that they own the power plant, or do they have an agreement with the power plant that, whatever power you manufacture, we will buy? So this is the curiosity wala aspect of it. So no, again, you are saying now agreement just because it seems to be the more likely option. I don't know. Maybe they are setting up their own power plants, and this is what I want you to go and look into. Show that curiosity. Try and understand what is happening, because once you do that, I can guarantee you this information will not go out of your head at all. Right? A lot of you might have this problem where you come and tell me, mentor calls me, this is one of the most frequent things that people say, that, I read this, but I cannot recall. How many of you are facing this problem that I read XYZ thing, now I can't recall? Yes or no? So, Shruti, we will be sharing a recording of this video later on. Abhi recording chal to rahi hai, but we'll let you know. If you have registered, we have your email ID. We'll let you know where you can find the recording. Right. So, kya hai? If you keep forgetting these sorts of things, that is why that happens, because we have studied these things at a very surface level. I have not gone down the rabbit hole. But if I go down this rabbit hole with Meta and Google, okay, are they actually buying power plants? Are they just buying power from power plants? Or like, if that is the case, why could they not buy power, from hydel power plants, or maybe set up their own wind, or set up their own solar? Why are they investing in nuclear? These are the kinds of questions that you want to ask, right? AI model train करने के लिए है, ठीक है, sure. But how much power is AI going to eat up that I can't do solar? When you do this sort of just Googling, just digging into it, you become interested, and knowledge that we are interested in becomes sticky. It sticks in our head, right? तो another common sense आप चीज यहाँ पे देखोगे कि generally constitution will give broad guidelines only. If there is a question which is saying that constitution has specifically said this, generally that will not be the case. Generally, again, there can be some specific cases where this might be an exception, but 99% of the time you will find that constitution will just define ki okay, there should be civil and criminal contempt, or civil laws and criminal laws of procedure, which parliament can then define. So then in 2022, if it says the Constitution of India defines, I know that at least this statement is wrong. Constitution will never define. Constitution will leave it up to the parliament. I don't know exactly. I don't know which article this is from. I don't know, I don't know कौन सा आर्टिकल में है. I don't know कौन से एक्ट में है, let's say. But I know constitution itself will not be defining all of these things, because these are things that keep changing, right? It should not be the case that there is a new crime that is being committed in terms of the cyber crime, cyber fraud, and in order to prosecute cyber fraud, I have to get a constitutional amendment. That does not make sense. So the constitution will usually leave it up to parliament. तो स्टेटमेंट नंबर 3 गलत है. हमारे पास सिर्फ 2 ही ऑप्शन बचते हैं, एंड बिकम्स ईजियर टू डू. ठीक है, easier to do. I'm not saying still you will be able to solve, but you will be able to eliminate some questions. So always keep in mind that such statements are suspect. Don't automatically assume that they are wrong, but have suspicion that these might be wrong, and that will make your life easier. And solving PYQs again gives you a lot of practice in these sorts of things. Now, for example, जैसे Article 335 है, the key thing that you have to understand over here is just because Article 335 was given in one question, now I'm not going to go and rectify each and every question that there is or each and every article of the Constitution. That is not possible and that is not practical. But, I can give some common sense understanding in this also. Even if I don't know what Article 335 says, if statement 2 says that our constitution defines efficiency of administration, I know that that is probably not correct. And if statement 2 is incorrect, there is only one correct answer to such a question, right? So PYQs क्या है? Shruti is asking again, should we automatically eliminate such options which define? No. That is what I'm saying. This statement becomes suspect. Suspect माने think it through. Does it seem logical that the Constitution of India made in 1950 will define efficiency of administration? Probably not, right? Because efficiency of administration is dependent on like a lot of new things. IT services, a lot of interconnectivity. 1950s में interconnectivity नहीं थी, तो फिर मतलब you're defining efficiency from that age and that being applicable now doesn't seem logical. Right. So therefore, I will say that it is likely the second statement is false. I will not blanket say कि नहीं define बोल दिया तो गलत है. No, I want to think it through. It will take you 30 seconds, but the more you practice, the more PYQs you do, the easier this will become for you. तो similarly, ये जैसे क्वेश्चन हमारा है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल गवर्नमेंट क्या है, व्हाट इज द पर्पस ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया. सो द लैंग्वेज इज चेंजिंग हियर, बट अगेन द कोर कॉन्सेप्ट इज द सेम, दैट अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल गवर्नमेंट इज अ लिमिटेड गवर्नमेंट, राइट? तो ये तरीके के थीम्स कैन बी डायरेक्ट और सिंपली कॉन्सेप्ट्स, or you can have related questions. These sorts of themes you have to identify from PYQs. तो जो direct वाली आती हैं, they're pretty similar, pretty fine. What I can show you is another thing. Wait. Right. So can everybody see this sheet? तो ये शीट आपको कहाँ पे अवेलेबल है? upscprep.com/plans पे आप जाओगे तो you will find this sheet over here, prelims 2020 2011 to 2023. तो I will also be updating 24 का जो prelims का paper है, इसमें more details I will add. But what has been done over here is that in polity we have broken down what is the area from which you are most likely to get a question, right? Like for example, preamble schedules part 3 4 4A. Part 3, as we said, fundamental rights, DPSP and fundamental duties. लेजिस्लेचर से एक क्वेश्चन आएगा, फिलोसफी जजमेंट अमेंडमेंट से एक क्वेश्चन आएगा, राइट? इकोनॉमी में अगर हम जाएं तो बैंकिंग से रिलेटेड two questions you will get. Fiscal policy, government budgeting, you will get 2 questions. Monetary policy and inflation, you will get 2 questions. Science and tech, say you go. Emerging technology, say you will get 2 questions. Now, emerging technology obviously will be something that is very, very relevant to each and every given year, right? For example, if we look at 2020, let me just open up CSP 2020. Awesome. So, can you look at question number 38? I want you to attempt question number 38. So I will be sharing all of these PDFs. These will all be available on the Telegram channel, and we will also be sharing, आपको a recording of the session. So please don't be worried about that. But I want you to attempt question number 38. Hmm. So a lot of people are coming with B and D. Now keep in mind, it says present state of development, right? आज की डेट में अगर मैं बात करूं, if this question comes in 2024, if this question comes in 2024, the answer will be D. Why? Disease diagnosis. Do you know that there is a AI called Grok? Have you heard of Grok? Grok. Grok. Yeah, coming to that, don't be worried. I want to hear from people. Have you heard of the AI called Grok? Grok. Hmm. So those of you that have not heard of Grok, Grok is the AI, मतलब chat GPT competitor launched by Elon. So Elon Musk का chat GPT competitor is called Grok. And Grok does a lot of disease diagnosis. So you can, just upload your MRI, you can upload your, क्या बोलते हैं, X-ray, and it will tell you, okay, what is wrong, what is happening. Create meaningful stories and songs. Well, this is something that obviously you tell Chat GPT to write me a story, write me, XYZ. Everything will be possible. Text to speech conversion. This is pretty simple. This is very, very true. Matlab, this is AI avatars, AI models where I just give it, like, how many of you have heard of Notebook LLM? Yes or no? So Notebook LLM is, again, what is it? It is a AI from Google. You give it a topic and it will create a podcast on that topic with two people talking. No input from you, no nothing. You just give it a topic, it will create a half an hour podcast. So this is text to speech. Or, I can write it and then obviously ask them to say it out loud. So all of this is already done. Wireless transmission of electrical energy. How many of you think this is possible? राइट, तो बहुत सारे लोग यहाँ पे बोल रहे हैं नहीं हो रहा, नहीं समझ आ रहा, बट as Chandrajyoti has very, very clearly pointed out, how many of you have heard of wireless charging? Yes or no? वायरलेस चार्जिंग आपके फोन्स में है आज की डेट में. तो मतलब who is going to connect that? Is that not, something to do? You have all of these technologies, be aware of it. So yes, wireless transmission of technology, electrical energy is also something that can be improved with AI. Yes. And similarly, bringing down electricity consumption in industrial units, if I automate it and connect it to a AI system, how many of you have something like a home automation system? Not a power bank, but something like a Wi-Fi switch, a Wi-Fi bulb, a Wi-Fi fan, Alexa, something of that sort. How many of you have that at your home, or have you seen it somewhere? नहीं देखा तो at least you know that these things exist. And that is what I'm saying. If I'm talking about 2024 right now, so then answer is D. But this question came in 2020 when Chat GPT was not there. So when Chat GPT is not there, so I was sitting in the exam and I was very, very confused about this. That, okay, maybe, wireless charging, I've heard of it, XYZ, but I've not heard of AI creating short stories and poems and songs. But now this is not even in doubt. So this is what you have to understand. कि आ गया दैट फॉर्म्स माइट चेंज, बट जो प्रीलिम्स में आपके क्वेश्चंस आते हैं they will keep getting repeated one way or the other. Your related concepts, मतलब when we are talking about things which have to do with, just a second, that have to do with emerging technology and research. So this is emerging technology. All of you are using AI one way or the other. If you're using Google, you're using AI, right? If you're using any of the software assistants on your phone, you're using AI. So then you have to also be aware of these things. If I come to geography, then physical geography, every year there are 3 questions. Indian geography, India mapping, you get 2-3 questions every year. So these are all things that you have to keep in mind are going to be very, very essential for you for understanding what is important in civil services exam, right? So this is the end of the discussion. If you have any doubts that you want me to take up, please put them in the Q&A and I'll take them up. All of the details, all of the details for this session and the other things will come up again later on, meaning the people who have registered with us, we have your email IDs, we will reach out to you and we'll share okay, where you can watch a recording of this session. All the PDFs associated with this will be available on Telegram. And for those of you that are interested, I'll also just walk you through the Prelims 360 course, right? The courses may you can go to Prelims 360. This course is again for people giving prelims in 2025. You will cover all GS subjects in form of live classes. Access to the recordings of those live classes you will have for 3 years. Meaning if you're giving in 26 also, or some year later, you can still watch the same classes. PYQ analysis, एक basic ये session तो हमने किया है. In the course, we will be covering last 10 years of PYQs thoroughly. We'll be doing each and every PYQ from the last 10 years. I will be taking a lot of those sessions. Then you will also have separate strategy sessions. You have comprehensive mentorship, meaning, people who have cleared prelims multiple times, people who have cleared this exam multiple times will be helping guide you. And, you will also get a full test series. This will have sectional tests, some NCRT based tests, and 25 full length tests. Now, Prelims 360 is a combination of GS 360 and CSAT 360. So, CSAT 360 maybe you will get live classes, full length 10 CSAT tests, practice MCQs for each lecture, and you'll also get a comprehensive workbook. So, workbook mein kya rahega? You'll be able to practice questions and you'll also be able to, you'll be given theory at one place. Okay, class में तो हो गया ठीक है, but where do I understand this particular topic from? The theory will all be given at the same place. At the same time, you will also get access to 2 years of current affairs का classes, test series वगैरह detail यहाँ पे सब given है, and you can course का schedule you can check out. So right now you have an early bird discount going on for this course. The fees and all numbers given at anywhere are all inclusive of GST. Right. So now coming to the questions. Mr. Gadvi is asking, when is the course starting? The course is starting on the 1st of January and will be finished by the 30th of April. So Kashvi is asking, how many years of current affairs should we be aware of? You should be aware of about last 12 months before prelims. Okay. Are there tests? So if you're already a student of any of our courses, be it essential or test series, so you don't have to join the course all over again. Essential may particularly you already have access to classes and mentorship. So please keep that in mind. And even after multiple revisions, while attempting mock tests, feel like questions will be 100% correct and end up with negative marks. Good. So Mahesh, in this case, what I want you to do is start marking questions a little differently, in the sense of कि you made a mistake, but I want you to classify mistakes as 3 kinds of mistakes. Number one, is it a conceptual mistake? Conceptual mistake में क्या होगा? that, for example, let's take up some sample questions over here. Like if you're getting this question wrong, chief purpose of the constitution of the country. So this will be a conceptual mistake, meaning I did not really know the, purpose of constitutional government. But on the other hand, I need some other question. I need some fact-based question. Other side bay. Right. Now this is more of a fact-based question. European Parliament approved the Net Zero Industry Act recently. So if I know this, sure. If I don't know this, I should not be taking a guess over here. So the second type of mistake that you want to make a note of is fact-based. First, आपकी हो गई concept-based, then आपकी हो गई fact-based. Where are my? I am missing all of my conceptual, factual, and finally the third category of mistakes that I wanted to classify them as is silly mistakes. Maniki, I was not able to, properly remember something, or I remembered something, but I mistakenly marked C instead of B, those sorts of mistakes. I had to mark which are not the statements that are valid, but I marked the statements that are valid. Those sorts of mistakes are silly mistakes. Next time that you're giving a test, I want you to classify and categorize all your mistakes into these three basic categories, right? Then further, we are going to go into that if I'm making conceptual mistakes, that means I need more revision. Okay, silly mistakes means I am not focused. I need more focus. Factual mistakes, if I'm making, I need to tolerate. Now, if I'm making 50 factual mistakes, then again, I want to try and reduce that. But some factual mistakes you cannot do away with, right? So some factual mistakes are to be tolerated. Silly mistake can be something very simple like I had to mark which of these statements are not valid. And what I marked was the statements that are valid. कि options मुझे दिए हुए थे 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 1, 1, 3, 4. And I marked the valid statements instead of the not valid statements. Or something like कि I was supposed to mark B. I knew the answer is B. But somehow when I entered the OMR, I have entered C. Has this happened to any of you? Has this ever happened to any of you? कि you went to mark C, but you ended up marking some other option. So Akhil is asking a very important question, which is, should we be worried about others getting more marks than us right now? No. Right now, I would highly, highly recommend that you not be too worried about कि भाई marks कितने आ रहे हैं. Right now, what I would rather that you be worried about is that how can I improve in the next test that I give? Even if you score 30, 40, 50 marks in a test, prelims test right now, but your job should be, okay, I'm going to give another test 10 days, 15 days from now, but I want to improve. This test I scored 40 marks. I want to score more than 40 in that marks. This is the only goal that you should have, that every successive test, I should score more than the previous test. उसके लिए go into depth, try and realize कि भाई ये 3 kinds of mistakes में से कौन-कौन सी mistakes आप कर रहे हो. Try and reduce the number of mistakes that you're making, and that is the way forward. The way forward with civil services exam preparation is not that you will know everything from day one. You will not. The way forward is to learn from your mistakes. So for that, you need to make a lot of mistakes and not be afraid of making mistakes. Right? That will be all. Have a great day and have fun.